Hi everyone, it's Monica Leonel. This is the Kickstart Your Book Sales podcast, and today I wanted to talk about hurdles that you will experience, or you might experience in the middle of your Kickstarter launch. So this is kind of a fun one for me because we don't actually get to answer questions about this very often, aside from with our students. So it's cool to be recording this publicly so that we can now point people to this episode. I will also say that Russell is not here. Unfortunately, he does have so much to share on this. I will try to kind of share some of the things that I think he would share, that he has shared in the past, to try to make this a more robust episode. But yeah, he's a little bit busy right now, so it's just me for the time being. We'll probably do another episode at some point. So I've just gathered a couple questions that we've gotten in the past and wanted to work through some of them. So one thing that people have asked us, I'm in the middle of my first Kickstarter. I've hit my goal, so that's great. If that's you, congratulations. And then just talking about some of the hurdles that they had. So one is that people don't understand Kickstarter in general. People don't understand how to back a campaign in general. So these are two different things. They're kind of the same thing. So how do you overcome that hurdle? I think the biggest thing to do is to talk about why they should back the campaign if you haven't already. So sometimes there's that. It's not that they don't know how to do it. It's that they don't see why they should do it. They don't have really an incentive to do it. And it is a little bit of extra work for them. It's always, extra work to sign up for another account to something. The second thing you can do is you can teach them how to do it. So get on, do like a Loom or like a short video on your phone, or, so get a screen share going of some sort. You can use Zoom to do this. The software that I use for this is ScreenFlow. You can also use like StreamYard to do this. You could probably use YouTube if you're looking for like a free option, but just somehow get on camera and walk them through how to do this thing. You can also write out the list of instructions, and I kind of recommend doing both. But writing out the list of instructions, I've also seen people do graphics, like branded graphics to their campaign that give the information as well. So think about doing that. So instructions on how to open a Kickstarter account, for example, and do it across multiple formats if you have time. Doing branded ones is nice because then someone can't just take your like really hardly, you worked on it really hard graphic and just use it for their campaign. So I think it's really nice to do that. So branded graphics, I think also, same with backing a tier. I think there is a lot of value in the why. The why is often the sales point. So why is like it's persuading people to do it. And I think that's important. And then if you've done that well, then the how kind of unfolds naturally. So persuading people on why they should back the tier, that's a much longer thing. I think it just goes to like, why are you doing a Kickstarter campaign? And I'm sure we have a bunch of episodes on that. So if you are watching this, you can go find our podcast, Kickstart Your Book Sales podcast. We probably have episodes about it there that you can listen to for free. So definitely check that out. Same with our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is called Kickstart Your Book Sales as well. So if that's helpful, you can see us, you'll hear us talking about it and you can see us, our faces for whatever that's worth. Okay. So another thing is people having trouble with the login process. They give up. Yeah, you're going to have conversion issues, especially if you are especially if you're in the middle of your campaign and people don't know how to use Kickstarter at that point. One of the things that we recommend, so maybe this is for somebody's future campaign, if this is, because you're at where you're at, right? But what we recommend for a future campaign is to encourage people to follow the campaign during the pre-launch period. So we recommend a month of pre-launch, We've done a number of episodes about pre-launch marketing and like why you should do it and how you should do it and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so having the pre-launch page ahead of time, the good thing about that is that people have to have a Kickstarter account to follow you, and you can increase conversion during that point and educate people on like how to follow and stuff like that. If they are otherwise having trouble with the login process, if they are giving up, this is where, like, if you really want their backing, like, offer to get on the phone with them, offer to walk them through it, offer, like, basically you have to offer your support, and you also have to decide if it's worth it. So if that person is trying to buy like a $5 ebook, or they just want to drop $1 your way to increase your backer count, like, is that worth it to you? And depending on how many backers you have, it might be, or depending on what you're trying to do, it might be worth it to you, or it might not be. So like what you can also do is say, like, I'm sorry you're having trouble with Kickstarter. If you send me money via PayPal, then I will get you your rewards. You can, like, I will sign you up for that. And so that's where we recommend using a fulfillment service like BackerKit, where with BackerKit you can add people after the fact in BackerKit. So let's say somebody backed at $20 or $25, and so they want a paperback or whatever. So you can go to BackerKit and you can set them up, like, what this is after your campaign ends, you can set them up as a backer in BackerKit at the $25 level, and so then then use that to continue fulfillment. So then if there's digital rewards, they'll get those. If there's physical rewards, they'll get those. Like, you can print labels, shipping labels for them, and whatever else. So we recommend using that. Otherwise, you got to track it by hand, like track it manually, and so you have to decide, is that worth it to you? If it's only a couple, it might be worth it. If it's not, then yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I would do it. So I mean, you have to decide. You have to decide for yourself. Okay. So another thing is people just complaining like, I want to buy the book, but I don't want to use Kickstarter. I think you just have to respect that. Like, they don't want to buy the book on Kickstarter. Okay. Tell them when the book will be available on retailers or wherever they want to buy it. Just be honest about that and just say, like, okay, well, the book will be on retailers 6 months from now. So, or whatever it is, we recommend a gap for this exact reason. Because if they want a book and you say, okay, I'm selling it on Kickstarter now, but if you want it on Amazon, then it'll be available 6 months from now for pre-order. I can guarantee that a lot of those people will be like, okay, I will just buy it on Kickstarter now. Whereas if you're like, like, the book will be available for pre-order on Amazon in 2 weeks, like, a lot of people are going to say, okay, I'll just wait 2 weeks. So I think I mean, it really comes down to boundaries. It really does. It's like, the thing you hold that is really valuable is your intellectual property. Like, you are the creator of this piece of art. You get to decide how it's going to be distributed, when it's going to be distributed. And if people don't like it, then, like, okay, they can move on. I think that this question comes from a place of, like, kind of like people pleasing, like, and it's not that if you're in business, you do have to please people still. Like, you have to have some level of people pleasing, and you have to make people happy. That is part of your job. But I think also just give people options. It's like, okay, you can buy it now, lots of people have, or you can buy it later. Like, either, whatever works for you, either is good for me. But if you're asking to buy it now and not do it on Kickstarter, that's not an option. Like, these are the two options. This is, and these are perfectly reasonable options for you. Doesn't matter to me which one you choose. So go ahead and do one of the two. I'm not able to serve you in the third option that you're kind of inventing for yourself and trying to make me create a whole new process in order to serve you as a customer. And so I think just, just always be polite, always be kind, and tell people why you're doing it. A lot of times, if you can say, well, it's on Kickstarter right now exclusively because of this, and I don't want to upset backers who have decided to use Kickstarter, so I don't feel like I can make an exception for you, but you can buy it later on retailers that you're more comfortable with 6 months from now. So whichever option is best for you, let me know how I can help you. You can make it sound very nice. What I just said was no, essentially, but I made it sound a lot nicer, and also gave reasons for why it was a no, which I think can go a long way, where people are like, okay, that makes sense, or that's fair, that's reasonable. You know what, I'm actually gonna just back on Kickstarter right now, since you explained it to me, or what, just people are as long as you're being reasonable and always being kind, and not taking it personally, because I think that's where some of the frustration can come from, is don't take it personally. They want what they want, and that's okay. You make a deal when you're in alignment with them and they're in alignment with you. That's when deals happen. So you want everybody to be comfortable, and you want it to be a win-win for people. All right, so another question we get, let's see. Another question we get is, okay, so if you're a newer author, or if, whatever reason. So one question we have is how do I get potential readers to trust that the writing is good enough, or that the product is going to be good enough for them to back? It's very hard to establish that trust. I think the thing that can establish trust the most is detail, especially if you don't have a track record. So probably the thing that can establish trust the most is a track record. The second thing would be providing details about how you're going to fulfill the campaign. So if it's I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, then that can give some reassurance of what people can expect, and then hitting those deadlines. And this is it's very hard. I'm not I can't say I'm great at it, to be honest. So, but that's how you do it, is that trust is built over time. Trust is built by keeping promises, by keeping your word. And so being trustworthy is about that. As far as the product goes, it really comes down to what is the promise you're going to deliver on, and did you deliver on that promise? That's what it comes down to. One thing you can do, if it's about the writing specifically, offer a sample. We recommend that anyway. And we recommend that you put a sample at the top of your page anyway, but offering that sample can be really helpful to combating that. Okay, let's see what else. Getting messages. So one question that we get a lot of time is, I get a lot of sales pitches as my campaign is live, and a lot of them are offering marketing services, or offering to help you get more backers or whatever. Do any of them work? Do you recommend any of them? The answer is pretty much no. There's one I can't remember the name of, that Russell says is good to use, but that it's only for a really big campaign. So that's something to keep in mind, is that publishing projects don't tend to be large enough campaigns to even be using a service with. And then just like anything, 95% of services don't actually work. Especially if they're reaching out to you, it probably doesn't work. So I would just be cautious of that. Okay. Should I pay to advertise my campaign on Kickstarter? So this is a question that I think comes from authors typically have to pay to be on retailers. So I would say no, you probably should not advertise your campaign. And so I think it's BackerKit. BackerKit recommends having an average backing of $50 at least per person, per backer. Like, so $50 per backer average on your campaign before you consider advertising. And I would say a lot of authors do hit that. But like, I would also say that most people still shouldn't advertise. So one reason is that I think that the free means are still pretty good. So like doing swaps with other authors still works. Doing swaps on Kickstarter works. But I would also say that I I don't think it's an easy sell for most authors. So you're an unknown author to them. This isn't a $5 ebook. So like whatever you know about advertising for retailers, it's probably not going to work very well on Kickstarter, because on Kickstarter, it's an unknown platform compared to like Amazon. Like most people know Amazon. Kickstarter is really unknown for like the average population. The amount that they need to back is a lot higher as well. So like this isn't an impulse buy. I was at NINC watching a presentation from Sky Warren, and one of the things she said is, I only write a couple sentences of copy for my ads, because like if I'm writing more than that, then I'm doing something wrong. Like, this is an impulse buy. And it hit me like, Kickstarter's not an impulse buy. So like throw out everything you know about advertising a book, basically, because it's not an impulse buy. And so you're going to have to do a really, really different ad strategy to do that. Something that looks more like selling a course, or selling, selling something on the nonfiction side, selling a course, selling coaching, something like that. Like, that's more of what you would have to do for a Kickstarter campaign. So it doesn't really make a ton of sense to do advertising right now. And Russell and I want to figure that out at some point and add like a new section to our Kickstarter course about that, but we haven't had time to do that. But yeah, we don't do a ton with advertising, because it's very, very hard to get conversion, and there are just other ways that still work pretty well to get more people into it. Now, I will say I've seen some advertising for authors who have very visual products, and they're advertising just to their customer base for the most part. So I've seen some of that. I think it works well to tell your current audience who already knows you what is happening on Kickstarter, like what you're doing on Kickstarter, especially if you typically are doing something in like KU or something, something similar. That could be a good point where you're like, okay, I should probably be advertising to those readers, because a lot of them are not like a lot of people have read my book in KU, but they're not on my email list. So like that might be a place where I would do some advertising to an existing audience that already knows you, that are like more likely to convert to a Kickstarter campaign. Okay. And then another question we have, so swaps. Let me talk a little bit more about swaps. So people ask questions like, I don't have an email list, or I don't have a newsletter. How can I do swaps? Well, you're going to need an email list. And so this question always comes down to, like, you need a way to reach your readers or potential readers. So email list, newsletter is probably the number one way. Having social media accounts is another way, probably a less effective way. And then doing advertising is the third way. So those are kind of like the three major buckets or categories of reaching a potential audience. And so ideally you have all three kind of figured out. If you have one or two figured out, then that's enough to do a Kickstarter campaign. If you don't have any figured out, then that's fine. I would recommend looking at who can you reach? So like most people at least have a Facebook profile, or they at least have like a list of their friends' email addresses or something similar. So you can at least reach those people. And so that could be like the start of your audience. So if you don't have, social media accounts specific to your book, you could try that instead, like just posting on your Facebook profile and seeing like who's available or who's interested based on that. So, and of course it's going to have a lower response rate. Like it just is, compared to, a list that you curated of people who like to read your books. Like, of course, just posting, on your general social media is going to have a lower conversion rate, but it's a place to start. Swaps in particular, if you're doing swaps with an email list, then you need to have an email list, kind of obvious. Same with social media. Like if you're going to trade social media posts with somebody, then you have to have social media, kind of like I don't know how you get around that. The other thing that you can do is you can do swaps on Kickstarter. So this is something that people don't know and don't realize. I think Russell does something like 60 to 80 swaps per campaign when he has a bigger campaign. And so you can try that. And he doesn't do it for every campaign, but for some of his campaigns, he does this. And so what it is you just contact people and you say, hey, I would like to, I will mention you in my newsletter. You can mention me in your newsletter. And hopefully we'll both find we'll both find some new readers that way. So you can do something like that too. And I think it's really useful. I think it's really helpful to do. Okay, so that is how, those are some things that we recommend during the launch phase. What tends to happen is people launch and it's exciting for the first week, and then they kind of go into like a dead zone. So we call it the dead zone, is where, your backers per day has kind of flatlined. Like you're not seeing a ton. You may even have some people unback during that time. So it may go negative during that time. So, just keeping momentum during that time is really important. And I think feeling like you have some control over your results is also really important. So these are some things that we know work pretty well. A couple other things I would do, typically this has to be done before your campaign runs, but a couple other things I would do is make sure that I scheduled like a live promotion of some sort each week of the campaign. So that could be a podcast interview. It could be all sorts of things, especially during the launch and during the last week. But I also think having, one or two of those a week during your campaign can be really helpful, because you're like, okay, I know, like this is rough, but I at least know that I have something coming out on Thursday. And so having like live videos, having like there are so many things you can do. Basically just trying to find any way to engage with people that you can. And having that all on a schedule can be really helpful during that dead zone time. So do what you can. Of course, a lot of people, they don't save energy for the dead zone. The other thing, well, I guess I'll talk about a couple other things. The other thing is like you really want to change up your messaging. So I think that's a big one that people miss, is like they miss, they start out with the launch and like the people who are backing are really excited and are there because they're excited about the thing. But then, there are going to be people who are like not the easy yes. So going through and talking to people who are like, yeah, I'm kind of interested. I saw your campaign. And often they're going to ask a question. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I saw your campaign. So what exactly is Kickstarter? Like they'll say something like that. And so then it's like, oh, okay, this question is not a question. It's actually an objection. So it's like somebody saying like, I saw your campaign, but Kickstarter is weird. So unless you can explain it to me in a way that makes it sound not weird, I'm not going to back. Like that's what that person is actually saying. And they might not even be conscious that that's what they're saying, but you are smart behind the scenes marketer. And so you understand what they're saying is like, I don't understand Kickstarter and it's weird and I cannot see myself backing a Kickstarter. So like, that's why I'm not backing it. And so when we hear stuff like that, we hear an opportunity for persuasion. And so, we would talk about, like, when I answer, I'm not gonna be like, oh yeah, it's like this crowdfunding platform that I'm using. Like, that is not persuadable. That's not persuasion right there. I would say something more like, it's actually this really cool platform. I'm doing a pre-order on the on Kickstarter, and what it is that people back the campaign. You can get all these different reward tiers. It's actually really cool. There are things that you can't get when it comes out on retailers. There's a special edition, there's this fan art, there's all this stuff. And then you might even want to like pull it up and say like, here, look at everything we're offering. So like when people back the campaign, they can get this thing, which is there's already 50 people who have backed this, so it's probably the most popular tier, and it's only $25. And so like it really is about just looking at it as an opportunity instead of like a blocker. Like, this person said they would support me and they're not. It's like they probably still want to support you, but they're hitting an objection in their own mind, whether they realize that or not. So like, the other thing I would say during the dead zone is, and like one of the reasons we encourage you to have some sort of live stream or live event is so that people can ask you these questions, and then you don't say anything to them. You're not like, oh, I see you have this objection to Kickstarter, or I see you think Kickstarter is a weird thing. You don't do that, but you translate it in your head, and then you can go back and you can think about like, how do I persuade this person who thinks this? And then tell that person, of course, but what we recommend doing is actually coming up with a series of emails about that. So like, you could have a series, like Russell does this every single time, basically. You can have a series of emails that's like, some of you have been asking about Kickstarter and why I use it. So here's why I use it, and here are the cool things that it can do that no other platform does. And here's why people love backing on Kickstarter, and here's this and here's that. And same like some of the other types of things you might hear. It might not be about the Kickstarter platform. It might be about your book itself. So people might say like, oh, I wanted to back, but I don't really like princesses and dresses, and the covers seem, or like, I wanted to back, but I don't really read young adult, is something that they could say to me, because my books are, they look younger, they look like a lot of young adult books, and in that case, then I would kind of come up with like, how do I turn that on its head? And so what I might say is, well, actually, the book starts with this character who's over 2,000 years old, and she's a prominent player in the first 5 books. You see her perspective, you get to learn from her, or get to watch her perspective. And a lot of my older readers really like this character. They think she's fascinating. They think they actually prefer her to the teen storyline. And I think you would like her too. And you can actually read a sample of it if you want on the Kickstarter page, like that type of thing. And you could see if you like it. So that would be like something I would say, maybe not out loud to somebody, but in an email or something like that, I would say like, okay, this is an objection I keep hitting, or this is a question I keep hitting. So let me kind of break through it for people. And so that's another thing we strongly recommend doing during the dead zone, is having those interactions with people to find the objections, and then you still have lots of time before the end of your campaign to address those objections. Sometimes, so the other thing I'll say about this is sometimes you will, and like Russell has done this, like he'll spend a week just sending out emails that address objections. Sometimes it's even 2 weeks sending out emails that address objections. And sometimes it doesn't really, like you'll get a couple backers from that, but sometimes it doesn't really end up creating a ton of backers during that time still. But what you'll see is at the end of your launch, a lot of people are like, you know what, this is ending. Like, I have to get off the fence now. And all those things that you've been talking about are like spinning through their head. And if you've done your job well, then for a lot of those people, they'll be like, you know what, this project is actually really cool. I'm gonna go back it before it ends because I do actually really want this. I know I've done that like multiple times on Russell's projects because I don't back them just because we're friends or just because we're business partners or anything. But I've done that many times on his projects where I'm like, you know what, yeah, dang it, like I actually do want this. And I'll kind of back, towards like the fourth week or the fifth week or the sixth week sometimes. Like sometimes I'll back like the day before or whatever. And it's because he's done such a good job of handling all those objections. So I encourage you to do that. I think it's a great task to do during the dead zone. And I think you'll be surprised at how much higher your campaign goes at the end because of the work you did in the dead zone. Not only will you get more people through the dead zone, but at the end you'll see a good size spike for if you've done a good job at it. So hopefully that is helpful. If you are in the middle of your launch, definitely check out our podcast for more ideas, kickstartyourbooksales.com, and we will